deja vu. It's pretty simple, but it's true. I'm better than you. I can do better than you.
Hello and welcome back, and it seems like it's been forever since I've done some kind of unboxing, and that could be because life has naturally got in the way of things. But nevertheless, I'm back again. If you can't tell by the playmat, I'm here with Streets of New Capenna. Once again, it's a collector's booster, because if you're going to show off stuff on stream, if you're going to show off stuff, then you might as well show off nice shiny stuff. Once again, what we'll do is we'll begin with my predictions, or at least what I'm hoping for in this set. What I would really like to do is, because I'm a huge Phyrexian fan, what I'd like to get is a foil Urabrask with Phyrexian text. Other than that, I suppose what I'm after is more of the triomes, which are, Xanthos Lounger and stuff like that. Hopefully, I've opened a few boxes already, and I really don't want any more of Raffine's Tower. I have got so many of those, it's just insane. But I wouldn't mind more of the triomes, or even if they're the fancy looking ones, not the Art Deco ones, the next ones. The ones that seem to have the symbol on them. I'm also looking for Bootlegger Stash, because that's going to go in my Squirrels deck, because nothing says squirrels than Chatterfang with making tokens, which makes squirrels. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Streets of New Capenna is an old/new plane, and we're visiting it for the first time, and it's all Art Deco style, which I absolutely love and adore. I mean, if it's not gothic horror for me, then Art Deco tends to be the next best thing. Because I love that whole ray gun retro aesthetic along with Art Deco aesthetic, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. It looked really cool. And it reminds you of the good old days! Anyway, so if you don't know the story, then log on to Wizards and check it out. Otherwise, the MTG Wiki typically has a digest, but I don't want to spoil it for you. But depending on the cards we get, some spoilers might apply. If you don't care about the story, then, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to spoil the story, because it's actually not a bad story and it's fairly interesting. But what gets me is that Elspeth is the main point of the story. Like, the entire point of the story is Elspeth. And Elspeth ticks me off for a number of reasons. One, her initial incarnation was all along the lines of, oh, woe is me, the Phyrexians stole my plane, woe is me. But then she sort of had this redeeming arc in Theros, and she really came into her own. She found love, she found a plane that she loved, and then she died for that plane, which was tragic, but it was nice, and it was a nice end to a story. And then they brought her back. And that also wasn't too bad, but it was along the lines of, okay, you're doing this because clearly you want to have a mono-white aligned planeswalker, because you killed off Gideon for shock value, and now you're kind of need a mono-white. Because more often than not, Ajani, who's mono-white, typically tends to edge into other colours like white-green or white-red. But yeah, so Elspeth is the main point of this entire story, and it sort of feels like they're deliberately shoehorning Elspeth in, because they're like, we have this one who has dealt with Phyrexians, so we need to have her do stuff because she needs revenge against the Phyrexians. And it's no, she doesn't. Anyway, I'm on a tangent. Anyway, Streets of New Capenna. Now, one thing you may notice with the Streets of New Capenna is, as soon as you open the box, and it's been a while since we've had one of these, you get a box topper. And this is an alternate art Gala Gritters, which isn't a terrible card. It's actually a fairly okay card. It's not fantastic, but it is pretty good. Basically, it has Alliance, which is whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control during that turn. You can choose one of the modes that hasn't been chosen this turn, which is to either put a +1/+1 counter on Gala Greeters, create a trapped treasure token, or you gain 2 life. Now, what's great is all those 3 are really good. And in order to stop it being abusable, clearly they've limited it to only 3 modes and you can't choose one that's already been chosen. But it also hurts it in the fact that, if you're going, the kind of deck that you want this in is a green, but if you're going to do something like Jetmir, who loves tokens and things like that, you could get this off a lot, but it limits it to 3, so that's why it's not a bad card. It's definitely not a bad card. It's not fantastic, but that's only because you can't break it. And yeah, it's actually not a bad card. It's pretty good and it should go in most green decks. Even in green commander decks, because it's good because you can always do with the treasure token and 2 life. And the +1 is just a nice counter. Anyway, so this is an alternate art Gala Greeters. Now, an interesting thing is that every single collector booster comes with a Gala Greeters. Depending on where you get the collector booster, determines the different art that you get. And there's something like, I think 8 or 10, I think it's 8. 1 for each continent or something like that. 8 or 10 different Gala Greeters for different countries. So there's a Russian one, the Japanese one, which actually looks pretty good. There's a Chinese one. There's basically one for every country. There's a French one, I think a Spanish one. Anyway, so box topper, and it's Gala Greeters, not bad, and it's foily too, if you can't tell. So that's always good. Now, let's get started with opening the packets, because I'm sure that's what people want. I mean, I'm hoping that people also want me to hear me yammer on a bit. Look, I don't have much to say about this set. So, as most people who have watched my previous videos would know, I generally look at things on the commander side, and there are a number of really sweet commander cards. But it really hurts me because nothing in this set excites me as a new commander. There are some good ones like Jolene, which is in one of the commander decks, which is a fun card. And if not, then it's nice to just go Jolene, 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 Jolene. And for those of you who also aren't aware, it also has an added effect that all the weebs, like me, get to make JoJo references, because one of the main characters in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is Jolene Joestar, who is obviously named after the song. And she's also cool, because she's in Stone Ocean, which is also good. Once again, I'll probably be cutting the tops off these packs, because they've gone back to making the collector booster packs almost impossible to open by hand. I don't know why, but they have. So, what we'll do is... nothing ever works out. So what we'll do is we'll go through them. Not really much to talk about other than some interesting things for the commons, so we'll just go through. Glamorous Outlaw is nice. Rob the Archives. Now, this is Casualty. So Casualty is basically, as you cast a spell, you may choose to sacrifice a creature with the power dictated on as the number. So Casualty 1 means that you may sacrifice a creature with power 1 or greater. And basically, when you do that, it means that you get to copy the spell, which is awesome. And of course, when you copy a spell, you can also choose new targets. So it's Casualty I like as a mechanic. It's great. It's very red and black centric, and red and black love it. And that's also the one for the Riveters, which are basically they're the muscle. For those of you who aren't aware of what colours this entire set has been spread across the 3 shards. So whereas before we've been focusing on the quote-unquote not shards, which is the Temir, the Sultai, basically the enemy color pie, if I recall what Maru called it. But this time we've gone back to the shards, so that means that we've got Jund, Naya, and all them, and each one of those is one of the quote-unquote 5 houses. That's an uncommon. So what we'll do is we'll move these cards off to the side. So another wonderful, really cool thing is they have these lands. Once again, we're getting the full art lands, which are always a treat. But these ones are called the Metropolis lands because they're supposed to show like a bustling city. For some cards, though, it's also really cool, especially the green one, because it reminds me and looks very similar to the Metropolis movie, which is considered, I'm pretty sure it's considered one of the first sci-fi movies ever. So these are always a treat. Now we have what is known as the Art Deco style, which has all these sort of gilding around the edge. What they also did is they also had like these weird foil Art Deco cards, which have the edging like not really embossed, but it's sort of punched out a bit, and it looks really cool and so shiny. But the cards that they have are limited. Corpse Appraiser, not bad. Sparta's Adjudicators. So Sparta is one of the houses. That's I believe the green, white, blue is Naya. So it's one of the Naya ones. And the Adjudicators, or at least... so in each of the colours, each of the 5 houses, I should say, you get these sort of citizen creatures. I can't really tell you what they are because each of them have different names. Like one... you got Sparta's Adjudicators, and I think another one you've got is like Raccoon Rogues or something. But I really like it because they have the first ability, which is whatever it does when it enters the battlefield. But then they have this really cool second ability, which is you pay 2 and you exile it from your hand, and target land gains basically color fixing. So in this instance, because it's for Naya. Wait, what was Naya? Maybe it's banned. I'm sorry, I haven't played with the shards for a while. I tend to play non-shards. But yeah, so basically you pay 2, you exile it from your hand, and target land basically gains add green, white, or blue. And it's until it's cast from exile, and you can cast this card from exile. Full stop. Like that's what the last line of. You may cast Sparta's Adjudicators for as long as it remains exiled. But basically, you pay 2 and you target a land and you color fix it for a period of time, which is excellent because that works not just in Standard, but it also works excellent in Commander. In Modern, not so much, and in Draft. In Draft, it's hit or miss because it really depends on if you're forcing those colours or naturally in those colours. It can work sometimes because I've seen some people basically cast it and then cast it for the colour fixing and then just leave it. But I definitely would say that it's one of those cards that you really gotta, in Draft, that you really gotta think about whether or not you want to use it. If you happen to be in those colours, great. If you happen to be in 2 of those colours, great. But then again, it's just a card in your hand and doesn't draw you anything, so it's sort of iffy if you want to leave it. But it's not a bad card. Ooh, Riveter's Charm. So Riveter's was one that we saw before, I believe. And this is one of the 5 modals. So it's obviously much like the other charms where you had Sultai Charm and you had... Yes, I keep mentioning Sultai. It's because that's the colour I played, because BUG is awesome. But yeah, so you have Sultai Charm, you had Temir Charm, and you had all them. Now they've brought them back for the shard colours, and they're fine. I got no qualms. You might stick them in your commander deck. It sort of begs the question why. But if your commander can utilize it, excellent. But basically, they all cost 3, one of each of the colours. And for Riveter's Charm, it's choose one. Target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker they control with the highest mana value amongst creatures and planeswalkers they control. The second mode is exile the top 3 cards of your library until your next end step. You may play those cards, very red. And last mode is exile target player's graveyard, which tends to be very black. I mean, you could also say it's black-green, but yeah, it's more sort of black. And that's not a bad charm. Most of the charms aren't bad. It's the ascendancies that get you. The ascendancies are a bit iffy, which is once again a callback. But if we get one, I'll talk about it. So Riveter's Charm and Foily, always good, looks cool. Speaking of the ascendancies. So this one is Calibretti Ascendancy. Now, the Calibretti are basically, I believe that's Naya. No, Banta. No. Banta's blue. Okay, so, my mistake. This one's Naya. This should be Naya. Because it's... No. Yes, it should be Naya. I apologise, everyone. Again, it's been a while. So, Cabaretti Ascendancy. Now, most of the Ascendancies are actually pretty good, with the exception of the... Well, basically, with the exception of the Obscura. The Obscura Ascendancy is not good. But this one... Cabarettis all care about having creatures, because they're all about basically creating tokens and pumping things out. They're supposed to be the partygoers, but they're also the not drug runners. So, Cabaretti Ascendancy. At the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card for your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. If you don't put that card into your hand, you may put it on the bottom of your library. So, basically, because it's look not reveal, it basically means that you get to check the top card and filter for what you need. Which isn't bad, because if you're playing red, you might need those I shoot you in the face things like shock, strangle, stuff like that. Green, you might need a bit more ramp, or white, you might need some exile, or you might need some little token creations, and of course any of the combinations they're in. So Cabaretti Ascendancy is pretty good. So now we also have the commander cards, because this is a collector's booster. Now the commander cards in this set are pretty good. I mean, the decks themselves are fantastic, and every single time Wizards bring out a new commander deck or something, it's usually better than the one before, because they just keep fine-tuning it and making it better, and it usually means that you buy a commander deck now, and there's very few cards that you need to take out. Like, it seems to me that the only reason why they are putting in average cards is so that you can take them out and fine-tune them, because more often than not, they don't really need that much fine-tuning, because they've just got so much better at it now. Rose Room Treasurer is one of the commander cards from the commander deck. It is Alliance, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you create a treasure token if this is the first or second time this ability has resolved this turn. If it's not, you may pay X, and if you do, it deals Rose Room Treasurer deals X damage to any target. So basically, you create 2 tokens in one turn, and then if you have any other creatures enter the battlefield, it just ends up shooting things, which is pretty dang good. Very red, especially since red now seems to care about treasures, but very red, very cool. Even Heartstabber. Okay, I'm a big fan of Dimir or blue-black, and pretty much any combination of blue-black. So that's blue-black-white. Blue-black-red is a bit iffy for me, but I can definitely pull it off, because I'm not a big fan of red. But pretty much most combinations of blue-black I love. This set blue-black annoys me. It seems to be very lackluster in what blue-black does. Blue-black tends to be mill and destroy, but Wizards clearly wanted to go in an opposite direction, and as a result, blue-black is just bleh. It sort of does what it should do, but half-asses it. So this is a blue and a black for a 1/1 with flying, which is good, no doubt. But then as long as there are 5 or more mana values amongst cards in your graveyard, Avian Heartstabber gets +2/+2 and has Death Touch. When it dies, mill 2 cards, then draw a card. So I really can't complain about this card, because it's basically a 2-drop 1/1 with flying, which in Limited is good. In Commander, it's okay, but you may need it, because there are various reasons why. Standard, maybe, but I don't really see it that much. I wouldn't see it that much. But as long as you got 4 or 5, as long as there are 5 or more mana values in your graveyard, then it gets +2, which makes it a 3/3 with death touch and flying, which is always great. And then when it dies, you mill 2 cards and draw, which is never that good when you mill yourself, unless you're playing green-black. So green-black tends to be the colours that like you milling yourself, but it seems that in this set and a few of the others, Wizards have decided that blue-black should also mill itself, which generally you don't want, because green has the recursion that green and white have the recursion that you're after and why you want to mill yourself. Next up we have Void Rend. I like this card. I can't really fault it. I mean, some people would say that three of 3 colours, so white, blue, black is expensive, but I say that goes into the whole this spell can't be countered, and it's destroy target non-land permanent, which basically opens up the entire board. It's good. I can't fault it. It's good. Ooh. So, this is some sort of spoilers for the story, if anyone cares. If you do care, skip ahead a few minutes, or stop here, go read the story on MTG Wiki, and then come back. So basically, Ob Nixilis is on the plane, as was already spoiled because Wizards kept trying to promote it by going, Ob Nixilis is on the plane. Do we know what he's doing? Meh. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that he turned out to be the main big bad, which everyone was like, well, that's obvious. Why were you trying to keep that a secret? But what was a secret is what his card did and what his card does. Which is, the end result was basically he killed one of the leaders of one of the houses and absconded with something. Or something like that. It just seemed like he wanted to take control of the plane and sort of got halfway there before Elspeth went, no. But anyway, back to the Planeswalker card. So this is the Art Deco version of Ob Nixilis, the adversary. So there's 3. There's the regular version, the Art Deco version, which is this one, and then I think they called it the model version, which is basically the 3 Planeswalkers that are in this set, and they're almost done as if they're models for the front cover of a 1920s magazine, which is kind of cool, but is kind of obscure because I'm pretty sure that most people don't go around collecting or comparing Magic cards with 1920s magazines with models on the front. But anyway, everyone loves this card for a few reasons. The first reason is that it's cheap. It costs 1 of anything, a black and a red. Next is that the first ability, not this one, I'll get back to that one later, but the first one, it's +1, is each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. So, pretty cool. And if you control a demon or devil, you gain 2 life. So it's like, cool, I ping you for 2 and I gain 2. That's pretty cool for +1. Its -2 is to create a 1/1 red devil creature token, with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Which is, again, pretty cool. It's the standard red devil, that little that pops up every so often. By the way, the tokens for the devils in this set, I love. They're so cool. But it's pretty cool. And then the -7 is target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. So sort of like a weird reverse version of... oh wow, he's been out of the public conscious for so long, I forgot his name. Nicol Bolas. So Nicol Bolas was always... It was like -7 or -9. I think it was -7. And it was usually along the lines of target player discards 7 cards, sacrifices 7 permanents, and loses 7 life. You know, that's Nicol Bolas's whole thing was 7/7/7. And then Ugin's whole thing, because Ugin was supposed to be the opposite or the good version, although how good he was debatable, but he was usually on the side of not killing the entire multiverse. So Ugin's was usually the reverse of that, where you gain 7 life, you draw 7 cards, and something else. I think exile 7 of opponents' target things. So he was always the flip. But now we've got Ob Nixilis, who is target player draws 7 cards and loses 7 life. Which I suppose can hurt you in fairly late game, but, you know, he's a 3-drop. Now, all of these are pretty good by themselves. Like, everyone loves planeswalkers that protect themselves, which Ob Nixilis does. Another one is basically he has Pseudo Drain. I'm going to call it Pseudo Drain purely because there's a condition attached to it for you to gain life, but it's sort of life gain. It's pseudo life gain. But the main reason is Ob Nixilis has Casualty X. And where, as you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with power X. When you do, copy this spell, the copy becomes a token. And the casualty... So basically you sacrifice a thing, and you create a copy of Ob Nixilis. Now, isn't it a legendary, you say? But no, the second line is the copy isn't legendary and has starting loyalty X. Which basically means you can sacrifice a 2/2 and you create another Ob Nixilis with loyalty 2. Which is great. You can do it with a 1/1 and it has loyalty 1. Yes, it might be pretty easy to kill, but you still have 2 planeswalkers on the battlefield. Second, if you really want, what you can do is you can sacrifice something with a power of 7 and create the clone, and then sack the clone with the -7, and you draw 7 cards and lose 7 life. So instantly you get value out of it. Like the casualty X basically means you can't not get value. Like even then you can do even then, because it comes in with 3, the other one could be a 1/1, like you sacrifice a 1/1, and it comes into play with the starting loyalty 1. And you go, cool, I'm going to -2 on Ob Nixilis to create a 1/1 devil. Then I'll +1 on my 1 loyalty Ob Nixilis to drain you for 2. Oh, and you discard a card. So Ob Nixilis is pretty popular at the moment. I'm sure when the next set comes out, he'll be less popular, but he's pretty popular and pretty dang good, and so cheap at the moment. I mean, not the card price. The card price is not cheap, but he's cheap to cast. Then we have a full foil of Witness Protection, which is actually not a bad card. It's fun pseudo removal because it costs 1 blue, and you enchant target creature, and it loses all abilities and becomes a 1/1 named Legitimate Businessman, because, you know, all businessmen are totally legit, right? And treasure token. One interesting thing to note about this set with the treasure tokens is each of the treasure tokens is actually a representative of how Halo, which is the totally not a drug that is popular on the plane, it's basically how Halo is stored and or drunk. So each of the 5 families has a treasure that sort of is relevant to that, and I can't remember what this one is. Yeah, I don't know. But it's just interesting to note. So, moving on, because I'm sure. So, this set they've definitely put some thought into it, which I really like. I mean, it's not like they don't put thought into it, but they definitely do. It's just a matter of how much thought have they put into how are they going to balance things. So once again, we have more commons. Warm Welcome's always a good pick for draft, by the way. Let's look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order and create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Now, why is this good? Gets you a card that you may need, but at the very least it costs you 3 to create a 1/1 blocker. Mayhem Patrol. So this is a devil, and once again I can't stress that the devils look pretty cool. I'm not really a devil type person, as in I'm not big on devil tribal, but if I would have all the devils from this set, because I really think that they look cool. For those of you who have seen The Godfather, good reference. Now we have the Forest. See how cool that looks? I just really like them. Disciplined Duelist. Double strike, and whenever it enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. Now, shield counters, I think, are an interesting addition to the number of counters that we have, because we have a whole bunch of counters, like we've got Menace, Lifelink, it goes on. But I'm really liking the shield counters because basically it prevents 1 damage, which is great because it can either be fatal damage, but it also works on their opponent's side because the opponent manages to just ping it for 1 or ping it for inconsequential damage, then the shield counter still goes away. So it's kind of cool. Another interesting thing is that it prevents damage. So if you play a thing that says destroy target creature or destroy target permanent and you target something that's got shield, the shield doesn't care because, no one cares about it because the creature dies. It only prevents damage, which I thought was pretty cool. Masked Bandits. This is the other one that I was talking about. So this is the Jund one, which is a 5/5, it's a 5/5 that costs 6, which is but then it's got Vigilance and Menace, which is and it's also common, which is and it's got the ability for color fixing, which again I really like. Oh, Depopulate. I can't not like this anymore. It's not bad, it's just plain average. It costs 4 for not quite removal, because each player who controls a multicolored creature draws a card, then destroy all creatures. It's 4 to destroy all creatures, which is great. And then it's each player who controls a multicolored creature draws a card. If you're going in Commander, and especially in this set, if you're playing Standard, everyone's going to have a multicolored creature, so that means everyone gets a draw. I much prefer the other removal, which is basically destroy. If a player controls a creature with power 4 or more, then they draw a card, then destroy all creatures, because that has a slight hurdle to get over, because you can have a whole bunch of creatures, and if you're playing against White Weenies, they're not going to draw a card. But if you're playing against White Weenies with Depopulate, then yeah, they're going to draw a card because they're probably going to have a multicolored creature. It's just easier to get multicolored creatures out than it is to have a creature that is power 4 or higher. Into Deep is a commander card. It's great. It's great. Just because I love it flavor-wise. It's an average card, but I love it flavor-wise. So it costs 2 blue with Split Second, which is great. It's great to see Split Second back because Split Second is fun. Enchant creature, planeswalker, or clue, which means that you can technically target a clue token, which is also great. And its enchanted permanent is a colorless clue artifact with 2 sacrifices artifact, draw a card, and loses all other abilities. So you can pay 2, to target a clue, to turn it into a clue. Which is, it's just awesome. And other than that, it's pseudo removal, much like Minimus Containment from Forgotten Realms. But it's fun. It's a fun pseudo removal. I like it. Sanguine Spy. This isn't bad. So it's a 3-drop, 2 and a black for a Menace Lifelinker. With pay 1, sacrifice another creature, look at the top card of your library, you may put that card into your graveyard. Which is good. Black loves that. Generally most black decks like cards in your graveyard. Or if you're playing black in another colour, then they definitely like cards in their graveyard. And at the beginning of your end step, if there are 5 or more mana values amongst cards in your library, you may pay 2 life if you do draw a card. I can't. Black with draw. Black loves draw. Black loves paying life for draw. But you're also milling yourself, which again, black sort of likes. So there's nothing to hate about this card. And it's got lifelink on a 2/3 body, which generally means that it can make back the 2 life that you just lost. Yes! Now, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is not the Art Deco triomes, or triomes as some people call them. I mean, you got a biome, so why not a triome? I call it a trio. Anyway, it's the full art, really gorgeous looking art. So this is Sparta's headquarters, which is basically, for those of you who don't know what triomes are, they basically provide 3 colour. They're 3 of the land types, so you've got a forest, plains, and island, which generally means that cards that say fetch a forest can also fetch this. So basically the Painlands, I believe, no, not the Painlands, the Pain Cracklands, I forgot what they are. So things like Misty Rainforest and Fetid Hearth, stuff like that. The pay 1, pay 1 life, sacrifice it, and search your library for X or Y. And it can fetch these. It also has cycling, so if you have too many cards on your field and not enough cards in hand, you can pay 3 and ditch it to draw a card, which can be done at any time, by the way. It's also an ability, so it's pretty difficult to counter it. But the art on this is, I love it. The only thing that makes me sad is that it's not foil, but that is only a slight sadness because I love this art. Like, this for all of them would be awesome. So, yes, there's that. So good. So good. And Workshop War Chief. I kind of like it. So, this is Trample. When Workshop War Chief enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. When it dies, you create a 4/4 Rhino Warrior creature token. But the thing that I love, the thing that sets it apart, that most of these cards have, is that it has this. It has the ability of the Riveters, which is Blitz. Blitz is awesome. Basically, you pay the Blitz cost, which is usually cheaper. This time it's more expensive by 1, but you pay the Blitz cost. It enters the battlefield. Then, at the end of your turn, you have to sacrifice it, and when you do, you draw a card. So, you get a card. Some of them have haste. You swing with those creatures. They die. Then, oh wait, no. If you blitz it, it automatically has haste. Yeah, so it comes into play, it has haste. It swings. You then have to sacrifice it at the end of the turn. Usually you get a bonus out of it. It's pretty cool. So blitz cards are pretty fun. Again, what was I telling you? Art on the Devils is just so cool. I mean, I'm totally not a geek for Art Deco stuff. No, you've got the wrong person. Clearly. Now, I should probably start speeding this up a bit, if only the cards weren't so hard to take out of their packs. Ugh. So once more, so maestros have casualty. Broker's honest parcel, which is obviously well, it's alluding to the whole sending a finger to tell people that the person that's been kidnapped is still alive. Except for instead of a finger, obviously it's devil horns. Oop. Going through 2, torch breath, tainted indulgence. See, even the swamps, which usually have the most unremarkable, unless it's Phyrexian, I lie, generally have the most unremarkable art. Just look amazing. Can't wait till I get my hands on Infinity. That's just going to be, the art in that is, Alright, so Skybridge Towers. I believe this is our first Art Deco. So this is the sort of Art Deco style that they're going for. A lot of the Art Deco ones. So that's like the regular for the plebs. And then you have these ones for everything that's, well, no, even a few of the uncommons get the pleb treatment. But yeah. So we have Rocco, Cabaretti, Caterer. Oh, look at that. Alright, so this was the sort of embossed one that I was talking about. So I don't know if you can see it quite right, but it's sort of raised on the edges here, where usually you'd have this. It's got that, but it's also in almost a gold foiling. And it's sort of raised a bit, so it's really good. And it feels really nice. This is Riveter's Charm, which we've already seen. And look, even when I'm looking at it on the when I'm looking at it on the camera, it just looks black, and then you got the white writing, and it just looks so cool. Unfortunately, this is also one of those cards that, not one of those cards, it's the type of foiling that you see on cameras and things like that, and it looks pretty bleh. But then when you see it in person, like, if you can, go to your local game store and just ask someone, or if you see one, just ask to have a closer look, because it looks really good. I'm a man of simple pleasures. This looks good. This looks good to me. Oh look, we have a foil body launderer. I don't know how to feel about it. It's not bad. It's just not bad. Like, it's a 4-drop, so 2 and 2 black for Death Touch with 3/3. And whenever another non-token creature you control dies, it connives. So conniving is the Obscura thing, which is basically you draw a card and then discard a card. And if you discard a non-land card, you put a +1/+1 counter on the creature that connived. So it's not bad. It's sort of along the lines of, it benefits you for ditching a non-land, which late game you're probably going to be doing, but early on you sort of want to build it up. So I don't have no issues against connive. I think it's a good mechanic. Just Raphine annoys me. Anyway, moving on. When Body Launderer dies, return another target non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So basically, if you keep conniving and you keep ditching non-land cards for like 3 turns, then it's a 6/6, which instantly makes it a threat. So then it dies. But then, when it dies, you get to select a non-rogue creature card from the bin with power 6 or less. And that enters the battlefield. So it kind of gets you cards back, but my issue with it is that it takes a while to sort of ramp up, and most people are just going to kill it straight out. And that goes for pretty much most things. Smuggler's Share. So we've got the artist Raccoon stealing Halo, which is awesome. Which is enchantment at the beginning of each end step. Draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn. Then create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield under their control this turn. So basically, if your opponent's trying to get ahead of you, so for example, if they happen to have something like land tax or something, which just generally gets it to their hand, but still. If they have, what is it? Dryad of the Elysian Arbor, I think it is. Basically, he Dryad, or even if they have Azusa Lost But Seeking, you get bonuses. And then, of course, if they're playing blue or white, which is pretty much the draw card, the I draw, and even now green is I draw, then you get bonuses from it. So it's not a bad card. It's just, in Commander, it either pops off or it won't. You know, like most commanders. Now we have the unpopular thing. So Wizards in this set decided that they would reintroduce a mechanic, because clearly this set didn't have enough mechanics, with 5 being, you know, pretty much the most that they have in a set most recently. But they decided to reintroduce an old mechanic, which is Hideaway. Oop, accidentally knocked the camera. Which is Hideaway. No one likes Hideaway. I don't know why they keep pushing it. No one likes Hideaway. Hideaway is not a very good ability. So Hideaway is basically, you look at, when a card with Hideaway, which is used to be only the Hideaway lands, now it's also enchantments. When a card with Hideaway enters the battlefield, you look at the top X cards where X is the Hideaway number. So in this instance, Hideaway 5 means that you look at the top 5 cards. You select any card from amongst them and you put it under this, under the card with Hideaway. That's what it does. Usually as a second part to that, there is a specific condition that you need to meet in order to get that card that you hid away back into your hand. And usually the condition is super annoying. So in this one, it's whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a treasure token. Then you may pay 1 of each of the colors. If you do, you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost. Now, that is standard. But this one this Hideaway actually works a lot better, because basically you spend 5 turns, or you just cast 5 multicolored spells in 1 turn, and you get it. Because it basically helps you to create treasure tokens. But in the past, and even now, it's rare to have a good Hideaway card. Like, the only other Hideaway card I can recall is the white Hideaway land, which is whenever you attack with, I think it's 5 or more creatures, or you deal damage with 5 or more creatures. I think it's just attack with 5 or more creatures. Then you can pay the cost, which I think is 2 and 2 white. Again, I'm going off memory, so I'm likely to be wrong. But when you pay the cost and you've attacked with the set number of creatures, then, oh wait, no, I don't think it's 5 or more. I think it's like exactly 5. It's just frustrating. Then you get to cast the card from underneath the Hideaway land without paying its cost. Hideaway is not a good mechanic. Most people don't like it. It doesn't work as well as everyone thinks it does. Like, it's one of those, hey, it works in theory, but not in practice. It's just, no. Oh, hey! We got the Art Deco version of Ziatora, who is one of the leaders of the 5 houses. So if you can't tell, this is a legendary demon dragon, because all the heads are demons. Why are they demons? Because they made a pact with demons and as a result forfeit some of their soul, which turns them into demons. I don't know. Basically, they're all demons. So we've got like a bird demon, which is Falco Sparta, the head of the brokers, and then we've got like a demon devil, I think it is. I think he's a devil, I can't remember. And that's Xander. Anyway. So this costs 3 and black, red, green, which means it's Jund, because when in doubt, Jund him out. And it's a flying 6/6, which is fantastic. But its ability is at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. Okay, may is good. When you do, Zeotora, the incinerator, deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. So, you sacrifice a creature, and most black things have a whole bunch of stuff that benefits off sacking. So, for example, something like, you know what? I've just drawn blank. But there are many things that in black that benefit off sacking something. Just like when a creature dies, do this. For example, you've got the black enchantment. When a non-token creature dies, create a 2/2 zombie with Decayed. Awesome. But not only that, but you sacrifice the creature, and it deals damage to any target, which means that not only can you shoot down things that are really annoying by sacrificing your big ass creatures, you can also, if there's no one really left to target, shoot someone in the face, which is always good and very red. But to top it all off, when you shoot someone in the face, you get rewarded for it with 3 treasure tokens, which is usually unheard of, because treasure tokens, but 3 of them. Whew. Next is a foil Sanguine Spy. It's one of the waterless ones, so kind of cool. Foiling is okay. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, so. And then we have a quick draw dagger, which, okay, people tend to get quick draw dagger wrong. So the thing with quick draw dagger is it has flash, and then when it enters the battlefield, you attach it to target creature, and it gets first strike till end of turn. First strike is not part of its ability, guys. It enters play, you attach it to a creature, the creature gets first strike, and then at the end of turn it loses first strike. When you attach it to a creature, it just gets the standard equipped creature gets +1/+1. It does not get first strike. I've had to correct so many people on that. I'm only thankful that they haven't called a judge, because that would just be a waste of the judge's time, because it's sort of along the lines of RTFC, which is read the flipping card. And again, we have a treasure token, and I believe this one is for the Cabaret, because it's got Halo that's in a martini glass. Because nothing says party like martini. Get it? Because it's a partini? Haha, I'm so funny. Clearly I'm tired. Please help me. Up next we have the commons we don't really care about. Oh, Goldhound. See, I'm only pointing out the interesting commons. Goldhound is cool. So Goldhound is a 1-drop 1/1 with first strike and menace. I mean, that right there is awesome. It's a 1-drop 1/1 with first strike menace. You use it as a blocker to kill something, or you can just swing at it and until someone has 2 creatures out. And even then, they have to deal with first strike. It's awesome. But to top it all off, it is tap, sacrifice Goldhound, add 1 mana of any color, which means mid to late game when you don't need it out, you can sacrifice it and get value out of it. There is nothing but value in this card. This would typically be an uncommon. This is a common. I cannot stress this enough. This is a great card. Like, if you're in a draft, it's obviously not going to be your first pick, but it's definitely going to be up there because it is a great card. And I can even see this being run in like artifact EDH decks. It's good. I mean, there are usually better options, but it's good. It's good. Raphine Silencer. So Raphine is the head of the Obscura, who is just a Sphinx demon, but not really much to talk about there. He's a demon. Oh, actually, I think they're... I don't know. I'm going to call Raphine a they. They're a demon. They're a they. They're a demon Sphinx. Another Riveter's Charm. Absolutely riveting. Now, this is what I talk about when I say Metropolis. How much does that look like the poster for Metropolis? So cool. Next we have Shattered Seraph, which, for a plane that's supposed to be completely devoid of angels because they're all being drained for Halo, which is produced by angels and we don't quite know how, but they seem to imply that it's basically angel blood. There are a surprising amount of angels. Like, there are a lot of angels. Once again, this is the colour fixing ones. And then we have a broker's charm. So this is sort of... So we've had the riveter's charm and the cabaretti ascendancy, but the broker's charm, same as the other one. Choose one. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So, cool. That's actually very green. Then it has destroy target enchantment as the second mode, and the third mode is draw 2 cards. There is nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine. Perfectly cromulent. Next we have a nimble larcenist. Flying, when it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery from it and exile a card. Again, White's usually a lot better at doing that, but Scheming Fence, which has a rather evil looking person on it. As Scheming Fence enters the battlefield, you may choose a non-land permanent. Activated abilities of the chosen permanent can't be activated. Scheming Fence is all activated abilities of the chosen permanent except for loyalty abilities. You may spend mana as though it were any mana of any colour to activate those abilities. Basically, this isn't a bad card. It's actually kind of a good card, except it doesn't often pop off. He's pretty easy to kill because he's a 2/3, which means he's in that perfect sweet spot for red to just bolt him, shock him, doing whatever. Well, not shock, but bolt him, strangle him, do all that kind of stuff. Pretty easy to get rid of. But the wonderful thing is that he gets to shut down a card for a little while. And that's his whole point. He basically just shuts down a card. I mean, you may get to use the ability of the card that you've shut down. More often than not, you just shut him down. That's what it's there for. Swindler's Scheme. Now, I do believe that Swindler's Scheme is one of the cards that is extra. So, there are the command decks. As of, I'm pretty sure it was Ikoria, in set boosters and collector's boosters, they introduced... Oh, wait, no, it wasn't Ikoria. It was Midnight Hunt. So, as of Midnight Hunt, they introduced... No. Well, it was Midnight Hunt or Vow. Crimson Vow. It was one of the two. But basically, they introduced the idea that there are 8 cards that are commander cards, that are commander-designed cards, but are not in the command decks. They are only available in set and collector's boosters, which I think is pretty cool. But it's sort of along the lines of, really, why do you need to make collectors and set boosters, more exclusive than they are? Because they're already, you're already paying a bit extra for more cards and for cards that are on the list. Why? Most of us are already going to shill out for the set boosters. I mean, unless you shill out for the draft boosters only, but it's like, why? Anyway, so I'm pretty sure that this is one of the 8 for this set, which is Swindler's Scheme for 3. It's an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell from their hand, you may reveal the top card of your library. If it shares a card type with that spell, you counter it, and that opponent may cast the card that you revealed without paying its mana cost. Which is... why? Because it's sort of like, they play a creature. Then you reveal the top card. And it's something like Vorinclex. A creature. So you counter that creature spell, and then they get to cast Vorinclex. Which is just... why? Because it's just... oi. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Swindler's Scheme. I think it's a bit meh. It's hit or miss. Wiretapping, which is again one of the hideaway ones. This time when you draw your first card during each of your draw steps, Whenever you draw your first card during each of your draw steps, draw a card. That needs to be worded differently, but basically when you draw your first card during your draw step, you draw an additional card. And it's just weird wording. Then if you have 9 or more cards in hand, you may play the exiled card. Hooray, 9 or more. If you're playing EDH, even in blue, sometimes you're just going to be stuck on like 3, unless you're playing massive card draw. I mean, I love blue, but you're not always going to have a whole stack of cards in your hand. Granted, you may, which is why I basically auto-include Reliquary Tower in every single deck. Well, every single draw deck, but still. So wiretapping. Maestro's Diabolist, or Diabolist. There are a few ways to say it. Death Touch, Haste, and cost 1 of each of the Jund. Wait, that's not Jund, that's Grixis. Death Touch, Haste. Whenever Maestro's Diabolist attacks, if you don't control a devil token, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 devil creature token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. Great way to get devils out, which obviously help with Obnixilis. And Soul of Emancipation. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 other target non-land permanents. For each of those permanents, its controller creates a 3/3 White Angel creature token with flying. Cool. It costs 7 though, because it's 4 and green, white, blue. Yay. I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but it's definitely not something to sniff at. And then, of course, we got a cute little fish. Cute little fishy that can't be blocked. And on the reverse is a wizard with 1. Sacrifice this creature. Counter target non-creature spell unless its control plays 1. Cool. I mean, there's really not much to say about that. Diabolist looks fun and helps out, but yeah. Another light 'em up. I do like how, because we're in Art Deco and they need to like separate the whole, well, we're in Art Deco / 1920s style plane, they do need to like tell the difference between the heads of family and citizens, because citizen is now a creature type. It's kind of cool. Figure in Death is nice. So then we have some freelance muscle. Another nimble Larcenist? No, it's Larcenist. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose an artifact, instant, or sorcery and exile it. Yeah, one we got before. How Art Deco-y is that? Sorry, I know I keep gushing about the lands, but they're just so cool. Then we have Racer's Ring, which again is the standard little Art Deco style that they've called it. Obscura Charm. Now, I can't stress this enough, but it seems like that with the white, blue, black, they don't know what they're doing. Because if they're not dealing with artifacts, then wizards are like, well, we don't know how to deal with these colours. Why? Obscura Charm. Choose 1. Return target multicolored permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Pretty good. Counter target instant or sorcery spell. Okay. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. Okay. So they've basically done the whole gamut. But there doesn't seem to be any cohesion. I mean, the other ones didn't have much cohesion, but they all sort of seemed like cards that you would play in a deck. I mean, with Obscura Charms, like, the last one is going to be along the lines of return target multicolored permanent with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. 3 or less. That's limits it a bit, but it's also very sort of, like, it wants white weenies, but you can't do white weenies because it requires multicolored. Counter target instant or sorcery spell. Cool. I mean, the thing is that you're paying fairly cheap and it's an uncommon to counter a spell, so... But it should be counter-target non-creature spell, or counter-target creature spell, because that's typically what you're doing with 3 colours in blue. And then destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana value 3 or less. Yeah, that one's okay. That one gets a pass. Camilla Glamour Thief. I kind of like it, but also don't, because the whole point about a glamour is it's something that you use to cast an illusion. You're casting illusion on yourself to make yourself look like someone, something, or even prettier. You know, it's a glamour. It's called Glamour Thief, but it really doesn't have anything to do with glamour. Why? Because it's a 2/4 with haste. You pay 1 and tap it to add basically Grixis. So a blue, black, and a red. Spend this mana only to cast instants and or sorcery spells. Cool. When it dies, when Cormella, Glamour Thief dies, return up to 1 target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to hand. Cool. It sort of feels like it should be just doing something with enchantments, but instead it's just, no, instant sorceries. Oh, we're getting all the hideaways. Cemetery Tampering with Hideaway 5. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 3 cards. Then if there are 20 or more cards in your graveyard, you may play the exiled card without paying a cost. Like 20, come on! By the time you have 20 cards in your library, you're either mid to late game, usually late game, in a 60 card standard deck. That's going to be a third of your deck, which more than often than not is when you're already halfway through your deck. Because you've played cards in the battlefield, you've played cards from your hand, you've got cards in your hand, and you've got all the lands on your field. So you're already going to be pretty much late game. And in EDH, like 20 cards, I mean, unless you're doing a self-mill green-black deck, even then, or even the very rare, or not very rare, but even the rare blue-black self-mill, it's like, but still 20. I mean, I was playing EDH today, and I struggled to just get 10. Well, I was looking for thresholds, so 7. But still, I struggled to get 10 in my graveyard. And another game I played earlier today, where, again, it was EDH, we had something like 5 different board wipes go off, and even then I had like 15 cards in my graveyard. So, like, 20 is just going to be... 20 is difficult. I mean, if you get 20, it's sort of like kudos, but do you really care about the card that you've managed to hide away when you played it? Because you played it turn 3, and it's hide away, and you just... No, you're not going to care. You're going to look at it and go, meh. Sometimes you even hide away lands, because it's like, Vivian Stampede. Not one of the extra commander cards. It's in one of the decks. Costs 6 as a sorcery. Each creature you control gains Vigilance, Trample, and Melee until end of turn. Gotta look up what Melee is, because I honestly can't remember. I want to say it's when when it attacks, it punches something first. I can't remember. At the beginning of the next main phase, this turn, draw a card for each player who was dealt combat damage this turn. Which is pretty cool. What you do is you stick it with Kiki Jiki, or even if you can't, you stick it with the mirror version that came out in Kamigawa, Neon Dynasty. But it's pretty cool. Maestro's Ascendancy. So, Maestro's Ascendancy is... well, it's pretty good. I think it's actually one of the best Ascendancies. So, Enchantment. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard by sacrificing a creature in addition to paying its other costs. If a spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile itself. Exile it instead. So, basically, it gives sort of flashback to all the sorceries and instants in your graveyard. which if you're playing Grixis, is going to be some pretty mean sorceries in instance. So that's why Masteros Ascendancy is pretty dang good. We've got another Avian Heartstabber. This time it's one of the borderless ones. I've already mentioned that. A cat and a rogue. The cat, I must admit, that's kind of funny because the cat tokens are accompanied from a card that makes either a 2/2 from Jetmir's second, I forgot her name, but basically it's whenever you would create a token, a token, you may choose to instead have it be a cat, a 2/2 cat with haste, or a 3/1 dog with vigilance. More often than not, I've generally found that the dog sort of is a matter of why. It's 3/1, it's going to die pretty quickly. But the 2/2 cat with haste, pretty cool. I mean, that's not bias, it was just a matter of, it's a 3/1 dog. If it was a 2/2 dog or a 3/2 dog, that would be cool. But just a 3/1 means that it's going to swing and it's going to die pretty quickly. I mean, unless your opponent has nothing and they're just like, cool, I'll make a 3/1 dog with vigilance. Anyway, these are the courtyards. I love these courtyards because what's happened is a lot of people are being really stupid with cards like Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Wilds, which are tap, sacrifice it, search your card for a basic land, and it enters the battlefield tapped. And what's happening is they're saying, I play an Evolving Wilds. I'm going to pass my turn. Then at the end of your turn, before the start of my turn, I'm going to crack it, and then I'm going to search, which holds up the game. I mean, sure, you might want it for landfall triggers, which is always good, especially if the landfall benefits you on an opponent's turn. So, for example, you have the Mammoth with in Zendikar, in the latest Zendikar, there was a Mammoth that was basically landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, it gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. So things like that, it matters. But people were holding up the games. So instead, they brought out these courtyards. Well, not courtyards. I mean, one's a theatre and stuff like that, but I'm calling them courtyards. Which is basically, when it enters the battlefield, you immediately sacrifice it. And when you do, you search for a basic XYZ. So in this case, because it's Cabaretti, you search for a basic mountain, forest, or plains, and you put it onto the battlefield tapped, shuffle, and you gain 1 life. So not only does it immediately get you a land, but you also get 1 life out of it. And people are like, well, why does this card exist? Filtering, that's why, and to stop people from basically piss-farting around trying to hold up the game because they're like, oh, no, I won't allow anyone to continue doing anything while I search for my forest that is somehow in my deck. And you're just like, oh, I just want to play this one card. No, you must wait for my forest. It enters tapped, you can't use it. Wait for my forest. So, it just speeds up the game. Graveyard Shift is expensive with 4 and a black, and this spell has flash as long as there are 5 or more mana values amongst cards in your graveyard. Return a card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Turning a card from graveyard to battlefield, always good. 5, a bit much, but acceptable because, it's going straight to the battlefield, not to hand. Angelic Observer, again, so many angels in this set. Art Deco Swamp, which, while looking at it, it almost feels like it should be MC Eschery. Kind of glad it's not, but still. Again, one of the pleb art decos. Another Riveter's Charms. Boy, we're riveting in those Riveter's Charms. And then we have one of those special foils with all the bumps, all the embossing, all the nicety on a average card. Because when Rocco Cabaretti Caterer enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you may search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So basically, recursion and stuff like that don't mean that you don't get anything. But it's not terrible. Fight Rigging. Again, with the hideaways. It almost seems like there's a hideaway in every pack. This one is at the beginning of combat of your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, which is always good. Then if you control a creature with 7 or greater, you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Oh, that's pretty easy to get off. You just wait don't even need to wait 7 turns, because, you just wait. I know it could be anything from 3 turns to 2 turns to probably 1. That's actually not a bad hideaway. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I'd use it just because you get a +1/+1 counter on it. But then you have other cards that do that. But I don't know, you pair that with the Simic Ascendancy and phew! Prosperous Partnership. Ooh. I'm pretty sure that this is one of the extra cards from Commander. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 green-white citizen creature tokens. Tap 3 untapped creatures you control, create a treasure token. Simple, gets you most of the way there. And you keep creating treasure tokens. That's pretty cool. Park Heights Pegasus. I drafted this. I really, really want to like it. It's actually not a bad card. I really want to like it. It's got flying, it's got trample, it costs 2. It's a 2/1, which is kind of iffy. And whenever it deals damage to deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. But it's if you had 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn. So it's not quite Alliance. So basically, you have to have 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield, then attack, and have it not blocked. Other than that, it's pretty cool. It just annoyed me how hard it was to get off. I really wanted to like it. I mean, it's a flyer in draft. What's not to like? Okay. So this is what I mean. So we have Jetmir's Garden here, which is in the pseudo Art Deco style, which, again, it enters the battlefield tapped, it's got cycling, it's all that. Then we have the really cool looking trio. And then, of course, here's one that I prepared earlier. I know it's a bit of a spoiler, but Xander's Lounge. So here we have the 3 sort of different arts. We got the very basic one. We've got the, apparently, Art Deco. And then we've got the full art. See, look how cool the full art is. It's awesome. This looks kind of, And, of course, that looks standard. I mean, I'm not going to sniff at it because it's a trio, but I'm also not going to sniff at it because the art's good. But this is it sort of feels like it's trying too hard to be special and sort of just falling short. And this just feels special. It just looks good and feels good, and it is good. So Jetmir's Garden, and we have another one of the embossed, but this Soul of Emancipation. Woo! So cool, so shiny, so good. And then, of course, an Ogre Warrior, with the flip side being a citizen. I actually like the art for it. I think it looks cool. Looks like the citizens are having fun. What's funny, though, is this is actually not the first time that we have a citizen. The first time I'm pretty sure was from the War of the Spark, where we had a land that created a multicolored citizen token, which I believe was 5-colored. So it created a token. But this is also the first time that we have cards that are actually citizens, because before we just sort of had just general cards, really. We didn't have citizen cards, we just had, ogres, orcs, all that kind of stuff. So, Tavern Swindler. Tavern Swindler is back. I can't remember what set she was from. I want to say one of the M sets. But she's back. She's swindling stuff. She's awesome. So, for those of you who don't know, you pay 2 for a 2/2, which is awesome, because it's pretty cool. You tap, you pay 3 life, you flip a coin. If you win, you gain 6 life. So, basically, it's double or nothing. Oh. So, yeah, double or nothing. Island. Another Shattered Seraph. We're getting a lot of these. A Nimble Larcenist. Ooh. A Queza. Augur of Agonies. One thing I do like about this set is they brought back Cephalid, because we actually are lacking a number of cephalids, and I think it's nice because we get to see not only how the cephalids have evolved over time, but also we get to have cephalids back. And this one was an interesting one that I almost wanted to make a EDH deck out of until I realised that it's Niv Mizzet without any of the fun shenanigans. This is boring. So it's whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And it's a 3/4 for 4. And you're sitting there going, that's not bad. I'll just keep drawing cards and draining life. Yeah, what else are you doing? Casting instant sorceries and... Yeah, so basically you're going to play Turtle Dot deck where you play Turtle Dot deck where you pretty much do nothing other than draw cards. Well, yeah, what's wrong about that? You kind of want to be doing a bit more damage. Ooh, Arcane Bombardment. For those of you who don't know, that was a Simpsons reference. Now, Arcane Bombardment costs 6. So 4 and 2 reds, it's an enchantment. Enchantments are good. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard. Oh, why do you want to do that? Then, copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. Oh? You may cast any number of those copies without paying their mana cost. Oh! Yep. So you cast a shock, and you have nothing in your no instant or sorceries in your graveyard. Then next turn, because it only triggers on the first instant or sorcery each turn. Then next turn. Then during an opponent's turn, you cast something like Lazotep Plating or Fog, some sort of protection spell. You then shuffle all your instants and sorceries, which you only have 1, which is a shock, and you exile it. Then you get to cast the shock. And then, of course, your fog or whatever goes into the graveyard. Then during your turn, you cast, a board wipe. So then you get to remove your fog, and then you get to cast shock and fog. And it just keeps going. It's just really, it's a really good card. It costs 6 for a reason, because it's a really good card. It's a mythic for a really good reason. It's a really good card. Problem is, though, as soon as this enters the battlefield, you can pretty sure that your opponent's going to try and find some way to remove an enchantment. It's not that it's difficult to remove an enchantment, it's just that more often than not, most decks aren't built around completely focusing on enchantment removal. It's more sort of just a little thing, like a Naturalize or Crossing Grip or something. You're only going to have 1 or 2. You're not really going to have an entire deck revolving around it. Either that or they're just going to counterspell it straight up. Park Heights Maverick is the commander card, which is Dethrone, which is a callback to... Ooh, I'm trying to remember. Dethrone was from the second draft set, Conspiracy. So the second Conspiracy for the Crown? I can't remember. But basically, Dethrone is... it gains +1/+1 if I recall. No. When it attacks someone who is the monarch, I think it gets +1/+1. I think so. I would have to double check. Park Heights Maverick can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Cool. I mean, it's a 2/2. It's cool. Whenever Park Heights Maverick deals combat damage to a player or dies, proliferate. Oh, right, no. Dethrone is whenever it attacks the player with the highest life total, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Because then the proliferate makes a bit more sense. Which is always cool. I love proliferate. I mean, not because I play Infect at all, I swear. Cut of the Prophets. I like the art on this card. It's kind of hard to tell. So it's this sort of surreal art that I really enjoy. So Cut of the Prophets is clearly someone who's being held down and being cut up with some kind of magical knife thing. And then someone's got tongs and is removing those parts, which is turning into gold bars. So it's a pun. It's like you get your cut of the prophets, but you are the cut of the prophets. Anyway, so it's X with 2 black with casualty 3. Again, you can sacrifice something cost 3 with power 3 or more, and you get to copy this. You draw X cards and you lose X life. Simple, very black, makes sense. Ooh, full art All-Seeing Arbiter. I don't have this one yet. Like, as I said before, I opened some boxes and I got some pretty sweet stuff, but I didn't get All-Seeing Arbiter. So seeing All-Seeing Arbiter and getting it in glorious borderless is just cool. So it's a 6-drop creature avatar. Whenever All-Seeing, it's got flying and is a 5/4. Whenever All-Seeing Arbiter enters a battlefield or attacks, you draw 2 cards and then discard a card. Cool, that's a blue thing. When you discard a card though, target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-0 until your next turn, where X is the number of different mana values amongst cards in your graveyard. So again, it's one of those ones where you just sort of keep track of what values are in your graveyard. But it's not a bad card. It's not great, but it's good. Oh, crap, this is just value now. So this is the embossed version of the Art Deco version of Obnixilis. So you probably can't see it, but it looks different because it's sort of embossy. Well, not embossy. It's sort of I can't really place it. It's like got all these little sort of mini bumps on it that make it look matted almost. So it's very sort of matte. Which is cool, because it's also one of the more expensive Obnixilises. I mean, Obnixilis is expensive. The model art, obviously, is expensive. The Art Deco version that I have is obviously expensive. And, of course, the foil mat just is expensive. Well, I mean, it's expensive in that, people want it, and therefore the price drives it up. But also, I'm not selling my stuff, so... Because that's the kind of person I am. I mean, unless I get huge excess. But usually my friends get first cut of the cards that I have excess of. But again, I don't have excess of Obnixilis, so... Once again... pretty decent art. Swamp. Tramway Station. Cabaret Charm, because I'm pretty sure that we haven't seen this one yet. No, we haven't. So for this charm, again, like all charms, it's instant. Choose one. Cabaret Charm deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. So Cabaret typically wants you to have a whole bunch of creatures. This basically shoots something in the face for the number of creatures. Pretty cool. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample till end of turn, so if you really just want to run over them. Or if you're lacking creatures, create 2 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Completely on brand. We have a Broker's Charm. This isn't the flashy Art Deco one, this is just standard foil. Obscura Ascendancy. God, I hate this card. I really hate this card. It's a rare and it feels like it should be an uncommon. It's so frustrating. Okay, you could... I saw So, you can do it in standard and it would work. You can do it in draft and it would work. You do it in EDH and you're hard-pressed to make it work. Like, I played against a mate of mine who had this and he didn't read it properly, and he realised after he played it that it wasn't that good. He managed to use it, but it's such a frustrating card. It should be good, but it's not. So, it costs 3, which is great. Nice and cheap. It's an enchantment, again. But, whenever you cast a spell, if its mana value is equal to 1 plus the number of soul counters on Obscura Ascendancy, put a soul counter on Obscura Ascendancy, then create a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying. Simple. Easy. Huge problem there. When it enters play, it has 0 soul counters on it. 0. Meaning that you need to cast a spell with a CMC of 1. So, you need to play it, which costs 3. Then you need to play a creature card. You need to cast anything that costs 1, and then you need to play one that costs 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Why is this the matter? Because it means you need to go out of your way to have 1-drops in your hand. And in EDH, there are a few 1-drops, but more often than not, you're going to be looking at 2, 3, 4s, and 5s. You're going to be looking at mid to late game because you're going to have access to a lot of mana. Because the whole point about EDH and Commander is that you're in it for the long haul. You don't care too much about casting a 1-drop turn 8. Obscura Ascendancy screws with that. Because it says, I can't do anything until you get 5 soul counters on me. Which you can't do until you cast a 1-drop, a 2-drop, a 3, 4, and 5-drop. But the upside is that as long as there are 5 or more soul counters on Obscura Ascendancy, spirits get +3/+3. Sorry, it's spirits you control technically, but spirits. So all the spirits that you pumped out thanks to Obscura Ascendancy get +3/+3, making them 5/5s, which is pretty nice. And blue-white tend to be generic spirits, with very few being black. But you're also not going to build a spirit deck so you can have Obscura Ascendancy. Because why? You're going to build a spirits deck and it's going to be good, and it's generally going to be white-blue. If you're going to splash in black, I'm curious as to what your spirit general is. It could just be a blue, white, black generic commander, and you happen to have a whole bunch of spirits in there. But either way, you're going to go out of your way for Obscura Ascendancy to cast a 1-drop, then a 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and 5-drop. Because it needs 5 or more to get the +3/+3, and you need to cast those spells in order to put soul counters on them in order to pump out spirits. It's frustrating. It should be better. It's not that hard. I don't know where the spirits come from, because most of Obscura doesn't care about spirits. And as far as I'm aware, there are hardly any spirits. There are more angels, and more ogres and rhinos, and citizens and cats and things like that than there are bloody spirits. So it just frustrates me that it's such a waste of a card. It should be good. It should be. It's an ascendancy. The ascendancies are good. This is not. It just annoys me so much. Aven Courier is a 1/2 drop, which is from the commander decks, with flying. Whenever it attacks, choose a counter on a permanent you control, and you basically put a counter of that kind on target permanent you control if it doesn't have a counter of that kind on it. So you swing, you choose something with a shield counter on it, and you choose something that doesn't have a shield counter on it, and you can put a shield counter on it. You can do it with +1/+1s, menaces, things like that. It's not bad. It's interesting, but not bad. Workshop War Chief, we've already seen, just the blitz. Toulouse, Clever Conductor. I kind of wanted to build this as an EDH deck as well, but again, she just doesn't excite me that much. Because when it enters the battlefield, it connives. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile them from your graveyard. So in other words, when it connives, you discard the card and you exile it. When Toulouse dies, you put the cards exiled with it into their owner's hands. So basically, you just keep discarding cards, and you get the bonuses for them, and then you kill Toulouse, and you get them back to your hand, which isn't bad. It's a lot like the satchel. I want to say Druid satchel, but it's not. Bag of Holding. It's a lot like Bag of Holding. But it's Bag of Holding, and then you got to kill Toulouse, and she goes to your command zone, and then you cast her. She's good in a deck. As a commander, she's okay. She just doesn't excite me that much. Unlicensed Hearse. This is a card that a few people are after. I know a friend of mine is. Basically, 2-drop, tap, 2-drop artifact vehicle, I should say. Tap, exile up to 2 target cards from a single graveyard, so it doesn't have to be yours. Huzzah! Unlicensed Hearse power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards exiled with it. So basically, you just keep exiling opponents' graveyards, or 2 cards from opponents' graveyards, and Unlicensed Hearse gets bigger. And it's a vehicle, which means it's an artifact, so unless they've got complete artifact destruction, he gets to stick around for a while. Oh, and it has crew too. I like it. I think it's kind of interesting. If I had space, it would definitely be in my vehicles deck. So... But, again, I don't have that much space for it, and most of the cards in my vehicles deck are around, getting vehicles out and dealing with things. These cards just don't want to come out of their packs. So we have Snooping Newsy, which is the only time that I've seen Newsy sort of written on a card. Which I always thought was funny, but Newsy is more an American term, I've found, than it is anywhere else. So, Newsies are what people outside the US would probably call a newspaper boy, or at least one of those things in an American TV shows and old movies where they go, extra, extra, read all about it. And they have those paperboy caps and stuff like that. So I just find it funny that not many other people, I live in Australia, no duh, because I clearly have a non-American accent. G'day mate, all that kind of stuff. And we always called them newspaper boys, so I always found it funny. I found it funny when later on there was a musical called Newsies. Yes, I know that was in the late 2000s, but I still was surprised when I saw a musical called Newsies, and I'm like, what the hell is a newsie? Again, this one's a forest though, which is funny because it sort of looks like Poison Ivy is taking over Gotham in this. It's very sort of that Gotham Art Deco style, but it's also got a whole bunch of plants, so it looks like Poison Ivy's taken over. I love it. I'm not a nerd at all. You can't prove that I am. Maestro's Charm. Once again, I don't think we've seen the other charm. So, we have choose one, look at the top 5 cards of your library, put one of those cards into your hand, and the rest in graveyard. 5 is a bit much, because 5 usually means, that's a pretty good choice. But it's still good, because you get your pick of 5, or one of those 5, and the rest go in your graveyard, and being Grixis, graveyard still is basically like another hand to you. Then you've got each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. Who doesn't love Drain? And Maestro's Charm deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Who doesn't love fire in the face? Me, that's who. That's why I don't like red. Waterfront District, foily, Art Deco-y. Maestro's Ascendancy, which we've already mentioned, but this is the boring art for it. Vazzy, Keen Negotiator. I do believe that this is one of the 8, because we've got Vazzy, Keen Negotiator, and then you've got the mono black one. So, she's 2 and Jund, which is red, green, black. she has haste, and target opponent creates X treasure tokens, where X is the number of treasure tokens you created this turn. So basically, as long as you create one, each opponent creates one treasure token. Why do you care? Well, here's why. Whenever an opponent casts a spell or activates an ability, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast or activate it, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then draw a card. So basically, whenever they crack a treasure, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on something, and then you draw. So it's sort of like how Jolene wants everyone to attack everyone else, because that way you get treasure tokens from it. Vazzy is like, yeah, cool. I'm going to create a couple of treasure tokens, then I'm going to give treasure tokens to everyone else, and then you're going to use them because you don't want them to hurt. You need the mana, and then I get benefits from it. So she's fun and interesting card. Road Hauler, it's a 5/5 vehicle with trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they create a treasure token for each artifact they control, and then crew 3 and it costs 4. So it'd go well with the Vazzy deck. It's not a bad card. Skimming Fence in the Art Deco style. Ooh, still a creepy guy. Cabaretti Ascendancy, but the Art Deco version, which looks pretty cool. And then we have our token. Alright. Almost at the end here. Whoa. So we're getting rid of the commons now. We're just going through things. We get another Maestro's Charm. This time it's regular boring art. Suspicious Bookcase, which was the Loading Ready Runs one, that first spoiler card, except for the card was officially, it was first released in, I think it was one of the M sets, like Origins or something like that. But I think it was also from like one of the Innistrad sets as well, because it's very Innistrad-y. But yeah, it's an okay card. An island, which looks ominous and menacing. Well, yes, I'm aware of that they mean basically the same thing, but I'm still sticking with the ominous and menacing. Rakish. Magic often makes you want to do tongue twisters because they are. So Rakish Revelers is basically one of those exile, and you get you get land fixing, and when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. Ooh, Mr. Orfeo. So Mr. Orfeo is not actually a bad commander. He's very simple, but what he does is very effective. So whenever you attack, double target creature's power until end of turn. So basically you cast him and then you just attack with one thing and you get to double it. If you manage to put +1/+1 counters on it, then you get, because, green, then you get to double it even more. And it just becomes insane. Especially if you somehow manage to give it trample and other things. It can be quite impressive. Professional Facebreaker. Again, I shouldn't like the red cards, but the red cards in the set are actually interesting and fun. So, Professional Facebreaker, Menace. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you create a treasure. Yay! Sacrifice a treasure, exile the top card of your library, you may play that card this turn. That's pretty cool. Cryptic Pursuit. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery card spell from your hand, manifest the top card of your library. So manifest is basically you exile the top card face down. You take the top card of your deck, put it face down, it enters the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature. Whenever a face down creature you control dies, exile it. If it's an instant or sorcery, you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. So basically, you take the top card face down of your library, put it on the battlefield. It's a 2/2 creature. It dies, you then put it into your graveyard. If it's an instant or sorcery, you exile it instead, and you can cast it until the end of your turn, until the end of your next turn. So pretty cool. Oh, hey! We got the drug sword. That's what my friends have been calling it. I also started calling it that. But it is the drug sword. It is the sword of drugs. It is a sword with drugs. So it's Luxior Guider's Gift. Legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Okay, cool. Equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker, and that creature is a creature in addition to its other types. Loyalty abilities can still be activated. Say what now? So you can equip it to a planeswalker with a cost of 1, or equip it to anything else with an equip of 3. And basically that planeswalker becomes a creature. Why would you want to do that? Well, got to remember that when a planeswalker comes into play, it has a number of counters on it equal to its loyalty, so 3. You then can equip this to put it on Ob Nixilis, and it gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. So it becomes a 3/3. Why would I want to do that? It's a 3/3. Well, you got to remember that loyalty abilities, the +1, -2, -7, are all technically a cost. And it can activate loyalty abilities still, because it says loyalty abilities can still be activated. So that means as part of the cost of Nixilis using his +1, each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. The cost is to +1, so you put a loyalty counter on him, which then means he goes from being a 3/3 to a 4/4. And keep doing that. Unless they can somehow stop you paying the cost, Ob Nixilis is going to get scary and can beat face. So that's actually a very cool card. And it also costs 1 to cast, so even better. Hostile Takeover! I have seen so many of these, I'm just not excited for it anymore. But it's a sorcery, up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 1/1 till end of turn. Cool. You get to make your big ass creature a 1/1. Up to 1 other target creature has base power and toughness of 4/4 until end of turn. You make your thing bigger. Then Hostile Takeover deals 3 damage to each creature. So basically, I make your thing smaller, I make my things bigger, and then I blast every creature on the field for 3. Because it doesn't say both creatures, it says to each creature. It's a good card. It's just, I can't get excited for it anymore. I've seen so many of them. Evolving Door. You don't need to fix Birthing Pod. You sort of did that with that Unstable Mutation card, from the old Innistrad set, I want to say Shadows over Innistrad. You don't need to fix Birthing Pod. Why do they keep trying to fix Birthing Pod? You fixed it, you had a good card, something or other, Evolution. In fact, there are a number of not quite Birthing Pods. We don't need another one. This one is just at best. So it's a 2 and a 1 green for an artifact that costs 1 to tap, sacrifice a creature, count the colours of the sacrificed creature, then search your library for a creature that's exactly that many colours +1. Exile that card, then shuffle. You may cast the exiled card. Activate only as a sorcery. Why is this bad? It's slow. Well, first off, okay. The main reason is if you're playing it in a mono deck, it means that you're going to sacrifice a green creature to search your deck for a green and any other colour creature. Because it's that many colours +1. Oh, sorry. Count the colours of the sacrifice creature, then search your library for a creature that's exactly that many colours plus 1. Yeah. And if I'm reading this wrong, someone please correct me, but the way I see it is you sacrifice a green creature, you're looking for something that's green plus one of any of the other colours. So that's white, green, red, that's white, blue, red, black. And then you do the same thing again, and you got to... It works in 5 colour decks, but most 5 colour decks are too busy either trying to fix mana or do other things. They don't care about Birthing Pod. They care about getting their stuff out. So I don't like it. I don't think it's a good card. If I'm wrong, someone please correct me in the chat. Or correct me somewhere. But it's just not a good card. It's just... It sort of feels like they're trying to fix Birthing Pod that doesn't really need fixing. Because Birthing Pod, I agree, is really powerful, but we've got so many different variants of Birthing Pod that it's perfectly okay. We don't need more. Getting rid of the commons. A jackhammer. Oh, Vampire Scrivener I actually like because I think she's kind of funny. So she's 5 for a 2/2, which is already kind of like overpriced a bit. She's a vampire warlock, she has flying, cool. But whenever you gain life during your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Vampire Scrivener. Whenever you lose life during your turn, put a +1/+1 on it. So basically, you play her, and then you do a whole bunch of drain effects, and she just gets big really quickly. Darling of the Masses is a citizen pseudo-lord because it's +1/+0. But there you need a lot of like citizen generation because there aren't that many actual citizen cards. I mean, look how cool. That's so Metropolis-y. Masked Bandits. Crew Captain I think looks pretty cool. She does what she does well, which is haste, and it is indestructible as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. Another super cool version, but it's a Shattered Seraph, which we've seen before, because it's the color fixing angel. Again, so many angels. Reservoir Kraken. It is trample and ward 2, and it's 4 for a 6/6, so that's 2 of anything and 2 blue. At the beginning of each combat, if Reservoir Kraken is untapped, any opponent may tap an untapped creature they control. If they do, tap Reservoir Kraken and create a 1/1 blue fish creature token with this creature can't be blocked. So it's basically like a cheaper, slightly different version of Clackbridge Troll, in which Clackbridge Troll is they sacrifice a creature or you gain 3 life and draw a card. No. They sacrifice a creature and it gets tapped. If they don't, it's tapped and you gain 3 life and draw a card. Otherwise, they get an 8/8 in their face for 5 because it has haste as well. So that's pretty cool. And Reservoir Kraken is like a lesser version of that because you just got to tap something, but you create a 1/1 blue creature token with this creature can't be blocked. So pretty cool. Currency Converter. I want to say it's one of the 8, but it's not. This is in the standard decks, the standard commander decks, which is 1-drop. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. May is good. Pay 2, tap, draw a card, then discard a card. Cool, it feeds itself. And you may tap it to put a card exiled with Currency Converter into your graveyard. If it's a land card, create a treasure. Cool, mana fixing. If it's a non-land card, create a 2/2 black rogue creature token. Cool, I get bodies out of it. That's always cool. Mysterious Limousine. I want to like you, Mysterious Limousine. You're not bad. You're kind of good, but you're also kind of bad. Why? It's a 5-drop, so it's 3 and 2 white. Artifact Vehicle, 4/4. Cool. Crew 2. Yeah, I can get down with that. Whenever Mysterious Limousine enters the battlefield or attacks, exile up to one target creature until Mysterious Limousine leaves the battlefield. But what is there to complain about, I hear you say? This is a good card. It exiles stuff. You can just remove your opponent's board. Yes, here is the if. If a creature is put into exile this way, return each other card exiled with Mysterious Limousine to the battlefield under its owner's control. So basically, if it attacks or enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield and it exiles your opponent's big ass creature. Cool. Then you crew it and attack with it, and you exile another creature from another opponent. Cool. Or the same opponent. And then that big ass creature comes back onto their board. And that's when it attacks, and not when it deals damage, which means they can still use that big ass creature to block your 4/4. So, yeah. I want to like it. It's removal. It's not bad, but the whole thing is that it keeps pumping things in and out. I mean, it's good for a flicker effect, if that's what you're going for your deck, because, Brago and a few others like flicker. It's good. Most of the other time, if you're using it as removal, it's not that kind of removal. It's just, yeah. Evelyn the Covetous. Now, this is the kind of card that I would make a tribal vampire deck around. Why? Because she's a 2/5 with flash. Sure, she costs 5. So 2, a blue or black, a black, and a black or red. She is flash. Whenever Evelyn the Covetous or another vampire, hence why it's vampire tribal, enters the battlefield under your control, exile the top card of each player's library with a collection counter on it. Once each turn, you may play a card from exile with a collection counter on it if it was exiled by an ability you controlled, and you may spend mana as though it were any colour to cast it. So basically, you keep casting vampires, and you keep exiling the top card of your opponent's libraries. Then, once each turn, you can cast any of those cards, and you may spend any mana as though it were cast of any colour. Now, the thing is, the reason why it's worded in such a weird way, such as each turn you may play a card from exile with a collection counter on it, if it was exiled by an ability you controlled. The reason why is because usually there are a lot of effects that are, when it comes into play or when it does something, you exile the cards. Then then somehow that creature dies, goes to your command zone, and then you cast it. Whenever you exile the top card, it's considered a different trigger. So that means that all those cards that you exiled before with counters on them, with collection counters on them, you don't have access to. You only have access to the new stuff. But this gets around it by saying as long as it was exiled by an ability you controlled. So that means that you always have access to everything that was exiled using Evelyn. So it's weird wording, but it makes sense. Also, this is the Art Deco art, which makes her look not only more evil, which is great, but also makes her look fabulous. Riveter's Ascendancy in the shiny kind. The bumpy. So, Riveter's Ascendancy. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Do this only once each turn. Recursion. I got nothing. It's simple, it's efficient, it's effective, it does what it needs. It's good. So as you've seen, the only real one that I have major issues with is the Obscura Ascendancy, because it just feels like it's doing something that it can't, that the rest of the cards in the set just don't do. And it just doesn't help itself. It doesn't really affect or do anything. It's just, it annoys me so. So, last pack we have for the family. Gotta do it for the family. Unfortunately, still no lovely bootlegger stash, which I would really like. And no foil Phyrexian Urabrask, which makes me sad, but I'll have to get over it. Can't have everything we want. Mr. Orfeo again. Planes. A train station this time. Ooh. Botanical Plaza. Oh, took two. Botanical Plaza. Glamorous Outlaw. Brazen Upstart. Devilish Valet. Hate to say it, but this is actually not a bad pick for draft. It's a 3-drop, 1/3 with Trample Haste, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can double Devilish Valet's power until end of turn. There are actually /enough cards that put +1/+1 counters on things that it's pretty easy to to put +1/+1 counters on Devilish Valet, cast a creature, and then swing with whatever doubled power it has. Pretty cool. Bribe Taker, a commander card, unfortunately not one of the 8. When it enters, it is trample, costs 6 for a 6/6. Okay. When Bribe Taker enters the battlefield, for each counter on permanents you control, you may put your choice of a +1/+1 or a counter of that kind on Bribe Taker. Wait, for each kind of counter? Oh, wow. Wow, so it comes into play and it's basically like, how many counters on things you have? Cool. You can put a +1/+1 or a shield. So if you have 5 things, you go 1/+1, 1 shield, 2 shield, 1/+1, 1/+1. So it becomes a 9/9 with 3 shield counters on it. That's pretty cool. Ledger Shredder, which is 2 for a 1/3 flying. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Ledger Shredder connives. Again, conniving's not that bad. Incandescent Aria. Sorcery deals 3 damage to each non-token creature. So basically, hey, tokens, we love you. Have some non-token removal instead of just general. It's actually kind of cool. And we have a commander card. Yes, it is a face commander card. Henzi Toolbox Tori. It's also foil and borderless, so it's not quite, but it's exactly. If you want to know what he does, have a look at the commander. Have a look at the commander decks. He's actually pretty good, and he's very Jundy. He's just, he does what Jund does best, which is I cast big things and then they smack you in the face. He's good. And that's it. So overall, not bad. Like, this set is actually full of interesting and fun things. It's just, many... Don't know why that's a... It's full of many interesting and fun cards, and a lot of them do exactly what they set out to do, which is, well, be fun. Just a bit sad about the lands, because I swear the lands are actually, well, I want to say rigged, but they're actually really skewed, because a friend of mine and myself and most of the people I know who open boxes didn't really get Xander's Lounge. So it seems really sort of skewed. Like, I ended up with 7 or 8 of the Raphane's Tower, which is the Obscura ones. So that's the blue, white, black. But I lacked almost everything else. Got a few of the Cabretti, but so we got the lands. You have the Arcane Bombardment, the lovely Obnixilis, Zeotora, Body Launderer, and of course 2 Obnixilises. So ultimately, fairly good box. Could be better in terms of money value. That's fairly decent. Lands are fairly decent. Everything else is kind of fluctuating at the moment. So I think the Luxio is expensive. But yeah, it's. I'm not really in it for the money. I'm in it for the interesting cards. Money's just a side bonus. But that was all. Thanks very much for joining me, and hopefully, you'll join me next time when we crack. Oh gosh, whatever's next. I want to say Commander Legends Baldur's Gate, but we shall see about that. Anyway, toodaloo. Catch you on the flip side.